Well, this is a slide I cut off the website from RAPS just to sort of put out there like the number of attendees, 5 continents, and all the speakers they had, and health authorities and notified bodies in attendance. I thought it'd be interesting for the group to see that. It's a meeting that I even though I sort of brand myself as a clean reg quality kind of guy, this is a meeting I've attended for many years, and I think it's the best international regulatory affairs meeting that I'm aware of, and I'd like to know how it compares to Europe's meeting, basically. But it's a staple meeting for me. I've got several of these throughout the country and throughout Europe that I attend. But this is a big one for me. I've been doing it for many years, and so anyway, here's some sort of numbers. Let me see if I can get to the next slide.
Can you tell me how the 1,700 compares to a year ago and pre-COVID?
Yeah, I wasn't really tracking that per se, but last couple of years has been sort of the last year was completely virtual and things, and so the numbers are I don't know where I don't know where the numbers are for the last couple of years, but prior to COVID, I wasn't keeping track of things, but I tried to find some on the internet, because when I got there, I felt like it was not as heavily attended this year.
You've been before, yes?
No, this was my first RAPS.
Oh, who was that? Who went to RAPS?
Ty's on.
Yeah, sorry I'm late, everyone.
Oh, okay, Ty. That's Ty. Okay, great. Yeah, well, it was, and plus you can also tell the convention center was a lot less, and I don't know, 25% less space and things like that. So I felt like it was, first meeting since 2019 that we had face-to-face, and maybe that was part of it. Maybe people have changed their threshold of getting out in crowds, and maybe that was part of it or whatever. But
David, how did you feel about the schedule? Michelle and I both agreed that it was pretty rushed. They had 2 full days of basically paid for workshops, and if we hadn't sent 2 people, we wouldn't have been able to go to every single session. That would have been relevant or important for us.
Well, I agree with that, and the short answer is I agree with you. And I was looking at the schedule, focusing on medical devices, and they had biopharmaceutics and leadership and things like that and stuff. But I've focused this talk on medical devices, and then I attended predominantly medical device stuff, but other things too. But yeah, it was heavily EU MDR focused this year, I thought, compared to previous years. And I guess there was some FDA presence and talks, and we'll get into that in a second. But I felt too that it was rushed, and they did this thing on the phone where you could download the slides, but a lot of times the slides aren't really conveying good messages that you would get if they were live and stuff. And so one of my feedback was, maybe bump this up a little bit and make it video. You don't have to do a lot of fancy editing, but make it sort of something video ready for people to pay extra for or whatever, because you couldn't get to some really important sessions. And I'll bring that out as I put these slides together. I'll show that, kind of thing. And I'm glad you're on the phone so you can, represent what was going on also at the meeting. But the first meeting, it was good that you were there. Do you live in the Arizona area?
Yeah, Michelle and I both live in Tucson, so we just were able to drive up for it.
Yeah. And I noticed that the pre-conference, and I tend to focus on the pre-conference because there's a lot more intimate, and you can generate business relationships better when you've got them stuck in a room for a day, or 2, depending on what you're doing. But I thought the pre-conference attendees were a lot less than in previous years too. So whether we would see hundreds of people attending things, it was less than half of that.
Okay. Yeah, I know when we were talking to some of the people from RAPS, because Michelle's quite close with a few of them, they did mention that they had kind of capped attendees for this because it was their first one back since COVID, and they were really pleased with the outcomes. But since it had been, I think they said it'd been 3 years since they'd held one.
Right. Yeah. 2019 in Philly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, neat. Well, let's go on to the next slide. I thought it was overall, it was a good first time back. I put a couple of things in here about overall for the meeting, just to let people know if you haven't attended this meeting in the past. There's some really neat things that happened. They had this honoring our leaders, and it was different awards, and they celebrate different things, new fellows coming into the organization and winners of things, highlight volunteers who did outstanding support for the organization last year. They had what they continue to have this Career Central thing going on where they'll help junior people with resume reviews and counseling, and you can get a headshot so you can use for your resume or whatever, and they have like this professional development theater that you can attend, which I thought was really good for the younger, from a pipeline perspective, getting the younger, less experienced folks involved and trained a little bit. They usually have a couple of good activities that happens at night, and the one and Monday night. So it was Saturday and Sunday pre-conference. Sunday night was kickoff, and then the meeting really started Monday and Tuesday. And they had a Diamondbacks game. I didn't go to this year, but and then Tuesday night they had this closing party at the Arizona Science Center. I didn't go to that one either, but I did want to highlight it. I don't know if your team went to it. Hi, did your team go to those?
No. On Monday night, Lean RAQA, we had lots of people that said they wanted to meet with us. So we had a happy hour with them instead. And then Tuesday night we were driving back home. So
yeah, I apologize to Michelle because I said I would attend and I couldn't. And I plugged in and went to the other restaurant, the one that was like, 10 miles away instead of
oh no, I sent you the wrong one. No,
Yeah,
I tried to pick one that people could walk to. Yeah.
I know, it was so embarrassed. I apologized to her, and I had like 3 people with me to kind of go over there and meet Michelle.
Oh, we missed you.
I know, it's my silly fault,
That's no problem.
My initial impressions was, I think I personally was excited to see friends, I call them partners and colleagues again, and I thought that there was a lot. I noticed a lot of discussions were happening on the side. That people would be having about technology. I put down here technologies and software, wearables, and and this was a big topic that was talked in private a lot was where does the new EU MDR approvals for new devices fit now? Because we used to kind of go to Europe first, and that's not the case anymore, and we're seeing a major shift from that. And I can tell you my own experience. I don't want to just what you're seeing, but EU is probably on down third now in terms of going to other markets to try to generate revenue to be able to afford to go to the EU now for new devices. I'm not talking about devices that are already on the market because you can't walk away from that revenue, but a lot of impromptu meetings in terms of like current business needs that we're having, what are some immediate solutions. There were a lot of budget discussions that I was involved with, and others were involved with. I heard, and as I was listening, and and understanding conflicting. And there's this issue of like people would hear different conflicting information being presented, at the conference, and there'd be talks about little powwows about understanding the conflicting information, which I think is good. It's healthy to discuss that. And I also noticed as a fourth point, there seemed to be a lot of, I call them, new, less experienced people attending. And from my perspective, I'm interested in people who have, can make budget decisions now, as a consultant now. But, I found that a lot were new to regulatory, a lot were new to medical devices, and they were not.
I also had that same.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
That there are a lot of new.
Yeah.
Like a lot of companies investing and sending people there instead of sending high-powered people there to get resources, except for a handful. Yeah. And mostly I saw this from notified body people that were there to specifically look to recruit.
Yeah, and a lot of they're still hiring, so that's exactly right. Yeah.
David, why would a manufacturer director or VP go to RAPS conference?
Oh, it's a good recruiting opportunity, for hiring, for retooling, and also, and being able to network with regulators, that are there. There's a lot of value in doing that. I mean, when I was with in a medical device as a director, I made it a point always to send people, including myself and others. We always get together and think about, we'd always set up strategies of how we're going to cover this meeting, basically. Have people covering things, take notes, have powwows at the end of the day where we learn and how this can affect our strategy and things like that. But didn't see a lot of that. Yeah.
David, this is Paul. Could I ask you a quick question?
Yeah,
From
sure,
the medical
Paul.
device perspective, like you've been going there, were
Yeah.
there like the DIA, like breakout groups like SciEx or for medical devices as a category where there was a track and you can meet people consistently in your field?
Yeah. And what I did here is because it's such a large thing to cover for this meeting, for this audience, I ended up highlighting those that had the medical device tag on that presentation. And I'll show you those later on. So yes, there was tracks for medical devices. Yeah. But even at that, those of us in the business also, as you know, are interested in, regulators that want to talk about something or whatever. And, and so as Ty was saying, I found it difficult. We spend a lot of money to go there, right? And we have had it difficult to really get the value that probably you would want to have, from something like that. So, but Paul, I'll show you that in a few minutes here. And we can talk a little bit about that. I highlighted all the medical device tracks in there. I think it's money. I think it's for Joe's group. I mean, I don't make any money on this, obviously, but I think it's a good meeting to have representation there from lots of different stuff. I mean, I'm a guy that loves to go around the booths too and talk to people and stuff. I mean, over the years, I've got several friends that work for these partners or whatever that and colleagues.
Who had a booth there? What kind of companies? I'm surprised.
Well, I mean, I'll let Ty get in, but there were all kinds of people. 3D medical device. There's publishing people. There's
lots of people who do like software submissions or help you with software.
Okay.
I have a PDF of who attended. If you want, Paul, send me an email, and I'm happy to, or anyone really. I'm happy to send you what the booth layout situation was. Of course, it changes as you get closer to the meeting. I don't know how current mine is, but
I'd like to see that, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't you put it in? You can put it in the
Slack
in-person folder.
I felt like there was also a lot of CER and labs in the booths, which were really beneficial for new technologies that are being developed.
Yeah.
Did you observe any booth that surprised you, was brand new, a new concept you hadn't seen before?
There was so I don't think he had a booth, and obviously I went to a sales pitch. Sorry, I'm pulling out my RAPS notes on my phone to get the name, but there was a guy who presented his software solution for basically software engineers. So, the best software engineers aren't really experienced in medical devices, a lot of them, because it's a very new space and it's very difficult to regulate. So they're very used to working in their kind of loose, undocumented, very quick life cycle. And so he had made a software solution to basically let software engineers work the way they're used to working in their code. And then have it auto draft like your actual regulatory documentation that you need, like your software system requirements, your software documentation, your architecture, in a way that is, FDA regulator friendly. And let me get the name of that. That was probably one of the more cutting edge kind of development bridges that I saw. That was kind of surprising. The guy seemed super sharp. I don't know how much of it was fake. I've obviously never used it. I don't know him. I don't know how well it works in theory.
I was looking for his card too, if it's the guy I think it is. He was at the workshop also, and I saw his software. I presented a bunch of stuff and also and actually met with him privately at the meeting on Tuesday. And then
Metrics Corporation, and his name is Erzy Kaminsky. So he had a very interesting product that he had been developing on that I think for this area of like where software is just not standardized, FDA doesn't know what they want, except they kind of do. It could be a really slick experience to be able to recruit some of that talent, move quickly, and then get what you need for a submission.
What's the name of the company again?
Keteryx. It's Ketryx. And I only saw his 30-minute pitch, and he did do a sandbox, which is more encouraging. I don't know how flexible it is with all the different coding language because they're not all the same. But it seemed interesting.
It's neat. Thanks for that. That's good information. Can I go to the next slide? Are we okay to go? So I did put together top five RAPS events from my perspective, and Ty, you can join in too, but I thought there were some good presentations from regulatory agencies. As an example, I've listed 5 of these here with real world data, vaccines, artificial intelligence, and developing decentralized clinical trials and how that could be a benefit, and improving, innovations in manufacturing, which Paul, I know you're interested in that. So that was these presentations, I have them all, Ty, you probably all do too. And although we're not supposed to share kind of thing, I'm happy to have discussions with people. I'm sure Ty is too. If you're interested in some of these topics to go a little bit further in detail, free of charge, kind of stuff. I thought a good presentation was this FDA ombudsman who was there that did this. With all due respect, we disagree with you, FDA. I thought that was a really good presentation. The future, even though this is drug development, there was this emphasis on the patient experience being important to gain.
I'm curious about number 2. If you don't skate over it so quickly.
Okay, yeah.
What did he disagree with?
Oh, like if whatever we disagree with the classification, the 3-letter code, this or whatever, just some sort of a
outcome with your
outcome that the agency has in some way, and it could be even rejecting a clearance or even a PMA or whatever. There has been for years methods to escalate this to a different independent piece of the agency that takes an independent look at this, and they call them ombudsman, and he just went through that process. That's been there. It's been there for many years. Is that helpful? Is that helpful?
Sure. Yeah, I get a general idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the other thing about new people and others, there was always these agendas along the way, to improve your skill level, either public speaking or regulatory intelligence, and working with the FDA, working for the FDA. There were these things you could attend. Becoming an author for RAPS, I thought those were really neat little selected skill things that they had along the way. And then the 5th one I had down here, it was this, they presented this RAPS global scope of practice and compensation survey. I think the last time I saw the results of this was a few years ago. But I thought the group would be interested in seeing a couple of outputs from that survey. So then put in the next few slides sort of show you, things about what the regulatory environment looks like with this organization members. So they sent an email in May, 100,000 regulatory professionals. They only got 1.8% replying, of which is 1,818. And then they put together this report. It's available if you're a member. It's available for the whole thing. But I went ahead and put together a couple of 4 or 5 little charts that I thought maybe the group, Joe, your group would be interested in. And one would be, how many. This you can read. I'm not going to read this per se, but the typical respondent had a lot of professional experience and even 10 years of regulatory experience, which they said was up from a couple of years ago. And what I thought was interesting also, they had a lot of them had been with their current employer for 4 years, which I thought was interesting, and in their current position for 3 years. So it goes back to this sort of shifting, and this is all 1.8% response rate, right? So.
Hey, David, going back to your previous slide, you don't have to switch it back. I have a question. You noticed actually the previous one, one before that with number 1, you got the guys there from Europe and Canada and Japan.
Yeah.
Were there any murmurs in the industry about any harmonization codes between all these agencies and trying to get a product that could, globally released? Or because now Europe is coming here. 10 years ago, we were going to Europe.
Yeah. It's really interesting dynamic, Paul, and you mentioned that because there's always been this harmonization thing that's happened between the thing. But what you're really seeing now is
it's going more away.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Really?
Yeah, it's getting even further. We have this idea of having like a harmonized group, but what's really happening is that countries that used to piggyback off of the US and EU are actually formalizing their own process. Like China just rewrote theirs, Japan rewrote theirs, Korea has their own standalone one now. It's getting actually more segregated because there's higher risk with devices, right? It's the effect of PIP where the country will become responsible for adverse events, and so the country wants oversight.
No, that's exactly right. And when I did my first talk with Joe a few months ago, I talked about in terms of clinical data and how countries were now becoming more sophisticated to want their clinical data from their jurisdiction, basically.
Yeah, their geography.
And we're seeing that exactly.
Wow.
I do have one presentation that is not on David's list, that goes along with this. There was one of the very first presentations I attended, I think it was the first, was the real world evidence.
Yeah.
Real world devices.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about it. It's coming up. I wanted to give
Oh, it's coming up?
and then I was going to hit all the presentations, but go ahead. And
I think that was probably the most education for an experienced regulator, because the presenter had clearly been working the submissions. He'd clearly been doing this and using it. And it's a very novel area with FDA. They keep promoting it, but they're not really consistent. Like they keep promoting NEST, but like, is it robust? How do you know where the gaps are? How to address it? I think the speaker knew that. It was so sad that we ran out of time. I really wanted to talk about gray cases. Because everything he presented on was obviously, 12-year spinal implants or pediatric adoption. And like, what about the edge cases of like not such a critical product in terms of needing long-term critical data, but was really good for society to have.
No, I agree completely. Was that the orthopedic surgeon that you're talking about, the older guy that had...
Yeah, he was, I think his name is Stephen Weber.
Yeah,
MD, so Department of Orthopedics. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
From an experienced regulator standpoint to kind of help bridge how to use that.
Yeah, and regulators are open to it too, because they're recognizing that they do need to look at real world use of products, that kind of thing. So yeah, I agree. I was there at that talk too. We'll talk a little bit about that. Getting back to the survey, Ty, thank you for that. We can expand upon that just in a couple of slides coming up. But another thing is, what's the highest level of education at RAPS from those 1.8% response rate? Here's the data. I've sort of summarized it at the bottom like that. They're a highly, educated group, with 2/3 being postgraduate degrees, 20% being doctorate, and a lot of natural and life science participation and engineers. And you can read the bottom line there, but it's a pretty educated group. I thought was good. I thought the group would like to see that in terms of the metrics, in terms of education level, and maybe you want to also see the compensation. I've got that coming up too. The other thought was the people who responded, at least, were really interested in the medical device. Almost 50% chose medical device in terms of what they were working on. I mean, it's a lot more data here, but I thought this is high level would be of interest to the group. And I thought this was good because it talks about the credentials. And I saw this information a few years ago. It's changed a little bit, but I won't go. You can read stuff at the bottom here, but there's a nice distribution of those that hold the RAC credentials and those that don't. As a consultant, I paid attention. Now I've been 3 years old as a consultant about whether this would be something I should do, and I elected not to go that route to try to get this certification. And the data kind of supports that in a way. It's probably going to change in the future or whatever. But then vice presidents and directors, this data will probably change as the years go by. But at least right now we have a lot. At least those who responded, are not credentialed in those categories.
I think the people who mostly responded were people who have more years in industry too, right? So credentials and certifications are newer. It's a newer requirement. It's a push that we're seeing in industry.
Yeah. And I support this. I mean, I had several of my friends that are getting into the industry ask if that's something that you should do. And I always say, yeah, I think anytime you can have some sort of credential after your name that's recognized, and it's always good.
Clearly, the survey is very skewed. I have to imagine. What's the cost to go to RAPS?
I don't know. Yeah.
I can't remember anymore. It's pricey though. I mean, it's not a cheap.
Oh, did you say to go to RAPS? I thought you meant cost.
Yes. What's the admission charge?
I think 1,900. I just looked at it.
Oh no, I got in free because I was a speaker, so I don't know what it was. Yeah.
So if you go plus or minus,
Joe was about
2,000,
1,900.
The more junior regulatory people probably won't be sent by their companies.
No, actually, I think a lot of junior people were sent by their companies.
Is that right?
This year, that's what we saw.
This year particularly. And I think part of that has to do with MDR and the extensive hiring that's sweeping everyone to basically do the, transition.
Yeah.
And so they're hiring people who haven't gotten any experience in regulatory because there's just not enough bodies. And so they're investing more for education and sending them to things like RAPS, which is, there are lots of educational panels that if you were brand new would be very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, right. I tried to highlight that early on in those slides about.
I think it's
the
about
training.
$2,000 if you're a member. I think it's about
Yeah, I just put the
$2,500
link.
if
Yeah, I just put the link on the in
Yep.
chat.
Yeah, it's correct. You got the right thing.
It's
And
pretty
Paul's
pricey.
great.
I think it's pricey, but you become a speaker, you can kind of, like, I wasn't charged anything for that, and that makes it helpful, kind of stuff. But I think it's pricey.
Michelle presented, right?
Michelle did not present this year. She did connect with several people because of her writing and teaching for RAPS.
Mhm.
We went because it was close.
Mhm.
Like we could drive up, we didn't have to fly or do anything like that.
Mhm.
So
Before I forget, you might not be on the call in either of the next 2 weeks. Is anything special coming up for you this month?
for Michelle,
No, for Ty Benson.
oh, for me, I will be gone from our Friday meetings for a couple of weeks because I'm having my big wedding party. I'm already married, but I'm having the formal event and going on a honeymoon.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, October 22nd is the big day, and I'm very excited for it to be almost over. All
Oh.
the planning. And then we're going to go to St. Lucia for a wonderful 10-day honeymoon.
Wow.
So,
Yeah,
How
that's
many
great.
guests will you have?
152, I think, is our final count. So it's not as big as I feared it was going to be, which is good.
Just so happens I too will be at a wedding on your wedding day. My godson. is
Popular
getting married
day.
on
I
the
know another
22nd.
person who's getting married on that day as well.
Yeah, that's great.
So congratulations formally.
Thank you.
I put this slide together I picked out, US, Canada, and Europe data that was in the report. I thought, I'm not going to go through the numbers, but you can kind of look through these a little bit and see the compensation per job title, which would be interesting. And having managed people all over the world, and AstraZeneca in pharma and in medical device, these are typical salaries that we've seen. Compensation laws are different, obviously. So you got to be careful how you interpret this on the one hand, because. But I thought this would be interesting for the group to see, as an example. Put together top 3 RAPS general themes for Joe and his MDG group, and here you can, yeah. So one was a strategy and documentation thing. You can read the things I had through here, but I think your group is, can contribute here in terms of what was being presented at the meetings. And I did put in this thing about having, this idea of basing, whether it's benefit risk or whether it's defining how your product is working and how safe is it compared to what standard that's out there. That's a big thing that the industry is dealing with right now, and developing these objective measurable criteria to look at your device and how it's performing against some metric, as an example that's out there. And then focusing on innovations. I listed several here, and Ty, you can add some more there, but you can read through here, this breakthrough technologies. It's not just FDA breakthrough. There's breakthrough technologies opportunities all over the world, in Japan, China, Europe, as an example, in terms of, fast tracking some good products through the system. I did want to highlight this passion of mine that I have about accessing public global safety databases and clinical trial databases and digital health and mobile apps, etc. Ty and others, you want to say anything about that? I mean, this is kind of a broad topic, but I think your group would be interested in knowing that, these are some focused topics that were talked about. You'll see it in the slides coming up about some sessions that were on some of these things.
Yeah, I would definitely say software was like a huge one. And honestly, I was a little bit disappointed with the kind of breakout sessions that were all on top of each other in that little space, because it was really hard to hear. Because I went for quite a few.
Yeah.
Well, I went for a lot of them because I wanted to talk to other people in industry, particularly about MDR submissions and how their software submissions are going. Yeah. Because software is one of those areas that just got really hit hard and up-classified in MDR. And I think when 40 people were standing there was one person. There was one person who had done an MDR submission, and hers was for AI, but it was extremely simple, straightforward, limited. and had already been under MDG certification. So I
Yeah,
think software was one of the biggest things that I saw consistently. I saw Nest pop up consistently, but not really in a practical way.
yeah.
So Nest is FDA's partnership for basically a public database for clinical.
Yeah, they RAPS has a book called Software as a Medical Device, and Gert Boss was a author. He actually got an award recently because of his from RAPS. I think it was at the RAPS. I didn't see him get the award, but I saw a LinkedIn post.
One thing I did
I would recommend you that book.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
No, I was going to say I recommend it. It's a staple of mine. I have it where I can grab it because it's so software has become really complicated too, right? And it's very there's inconsistencies, depending on the jurisdictions that you're going into also. And so
is it really a good book?
Yeah, it is. It's called Software as a Medical Device from RAPS.
I've noticed that one of my colleagues is one of the co-authors.
Yeah.
I have the electronic copy.
Oh, is this Cohen? Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I have. Yeah, I did both because I didn't know. It was one of the first books I bought, and I thought you could copy and paste stuff from the electronic version. At least my version, you can't do that. So, yeah. But anyway,
one thing I saw was that there was a lot of FDA there, and I drove by FDA because of a question that I answered, and I'll tell that story in a little bit. But especially in the software sessions, even some of the presenters were like, before I open up to questions, I kid you not, someone said this, one of the presenters, before I open you up for questions, be careful what you say here, because if you misbrand your device as doing something and say it's commercially available, FDA does sit in the audience of these.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that there were 2 members of the FDA sitting in the back of the room in that session. So I thought that was really interesting. But one thing I saw from FDA's presence at RAPS is that I am almost convinced, and now that the eStar guidance has come out and said that you're doing a mandatory transition by October next year, they are going to make every submission type an eStar. They were heavily implying it and heavily hinting that your pre-subs, 513Gs, de novos, PMAs, I bet you in the next couple of years, they will all be an eStar template, which is terrible. I mean, eStar is not. You
don't like it, huh? I love it. I love it. Yeah, because
have you used it? Do you?
I'm actually putting one together right now. So I did a mock one just to kind of get used to that interactive PDF format. But our group is doing one, at the moment. I love it because it sort of reminds me of that, what is the tax software that we all use? TurboTax. TurboTax. You can't make a mistake because it's again.
David, by the way, speaking of books, I just put a link to your Mythical Medical. How's
it's actually doing? Yeah, it's actually doing well. And as a matter of fact, I don't want to spend a lot of time, saying stuff about that, but it's actually doing very well. And there was a lot of people at the meeting came up to me and said some clever things to me and stuff like that. So it's doing real well. I'm really surprised because I didn't, and of course I'm not making any money off of it because I give it away free on Kindle. And if you're not a Kindle member, it's 99 cents. If you want to buy the hard copy, it's $14 or whatever. But it's really doing well. I think it's because I've tried to explain the revolution that's occurring over there in Europe in terms of how people are dealing with it, in this mythical medical company, as an example. So it's doing well. And the company, the publisher and my actually LA screenwriter, are both independently said, it hit these categories that are really neat. And they said, this never happens. You got to do your second book, that kind of thing. And so I'm doing a second book now with that same sort of mix of people trying, the interactions of people at a company. And I've got a venture capital company called By Design. That's a venture capital company that partners with Mythical Medical. And, it's great interactions. There's romance going on and fraud. Of course, you got to put the fraud in there and that kind of stuff. So.
Teresa, if you're gonna leave a comment like "love the book," you have to put your camera on so David can see his adoring fans.
Oh well, you don't do that. Yeah.
You know what? I stay in South Africa, and I don't know if you know, but we have such power problems.
That's okay.
My motherboard of my good faithful blew from power. So I'm not connected at the moment where there is something
Oh,
where I could
yeah.
display my camera.
Wow, okay.
I'm working on it, but
All right.
actually
Well,
very
welcome
nice
to the
see
call.
everybody
And what
in
time is it
person.
for you?
Oh, it's still early. It's 5:45.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Nothing
David,
else
have
that
you
I'd
ever
rather
been,
do.
David, has your presentation ever been so powerful as to blow out power in a city?
I would divide that by at least 5. No, it's not. So no, it's not. Thank you though for giving the shout out to the book. It's actually
Sure.
doing amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very clinical, very clinically based.
Yeah. It's really practical, right? I mean, it
Yes.
gives you
Yes.
sort of like things you can do tomorrow when you go back to work and stuff.
Correct.
It sounds to me as though that would have been a good place if they weren't there for Nyquist Data. Did they have a booth? I don't think they did.
Nyquist was there. They had a booth.
They did? Who was
Yeah.
there?
Michelle.
Oh, Michelle was there.
Yeah. And we stopped by. and said hi
Hunter
to
was
them.
there, and what's his name?
Gavin?
Gavin was there too. Yeah.
Mike's on this call, but he may have stepped away from his desk. I asked him to
Okay.
jump on.
Yeah, Joe, there's a picture of the 3 musketeers, Michelle, both the Michelles and David on the Slack.
Oh, right. That's
They
right.
Okay.
meet in person.
Yeah.
Yep. There they are.
Yeah. I have to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that in the.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. There you go. That's good. Can we go to the next slide, Joe? Is that okay with you?
By all means.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
please
So the
go.
next
I'm
couple of
just-
slides I wanted to show you the speakers and the topics that were covered for the pre-conference workshops, and then for the ones that were called medical devices for the presentation during the meetings. And those of you, if you attended any of these, please say something. I thought David usually attends this meeting. I wanted to give David a shout out if he was there. He had a nice session on U.S. regulatory essentials for devices and IVDs.
I see our user-wise friends were there, Shannon and.
Yes, yeah. And the last 2 were here from a medical device standpoint. We had a lot of people attend our conference. But I thought this would also maybe give you ideas of people maybe to invite to give some presentations. I know you want to maybe or whatever, but you can take some time to look at this. This was the workshop that since I did the workshop, I'll just have 2 slides. These were the objectives of our workshop. We had people from 4 continents, I guess, at the workshop. I was told it was one of the most attended. It was only 38 there, but I mean, it was really highly attended and interactive along the way. Very practical things. These were the main cases that were presented throughout the day, and they had to build submission packets and present to the panel and things. And so we had, and bringing out issues with EU MDR, 5 ways to improve your EU MDR submission. And, TUV Sub, Martin and Richard with BSI. And then they took the lead on like a new implant where you have to go maybe through a scrutiny consultation procedure, depending on the novelty of your device. And Richard did a sort of a coronary catheter legacy device and the problems or challenges associated with that. And then I wanted to make it also, okay for the lower risk devices. So I took a class 2A non-implant trials thing. It's in the orthopedic world. It's kind of a model to help you line up your implant, as an example. And we covered a bunch of things. And I took the lead and did a big thing on biocompatibility, things like that too. So this is kind of what we did. We had a really good turnout. A lot of very practical things. I mean, there's so many handouts that we gave out and templates and things like that to help make their job easier. These were some of the talks. So Paul, where they had medical device in here, on the next 4 slides are that. So you can look at the light at the end of the tunnel with EU MDR, and you'll notice there's a lot of EU MDR stuff going on. And then Ty, the real world evidence thing that you were talking about here was a good one.
Did you attend the light at the end of the tunnel presentation?
No, I didn't. I attended a different presentation.
I'm pretty sure it was at the same time as the real world, because
Yeah,
I'm
it was.
almost positive that Michelle and I had to
Yeah,
split these
yeah.
2. Yeah, they were at the same
Yeah, okay,
time.
yeah.
And
So
and her perspective was that EU MDR light at the end of the tunnel, there was no light, and it was a lot of industry venting.
Let's see who is,
Let's walk.
and I will.
But this gives you some other information about who's, what was presented, what were the hot topics here in medical devices at least, and who sponsored it. I think that's a good situation to look at, is who's sponsoring this stuff. And you'll see
Right.
Rinxis and Bacille Systems sponsoring a lot of these, as an example, along the way. We talked a little bit, Ty, you said a little bit about the real world evidence, but the guy was really informed. I thought this physician, I talked to him, actually went up and talked to him afterwards a lot, because I do a lot in this area too, as an example. Any other comment, or can we go to the next slide, or? Okay. Here's another couple of talks. There's like I said, 3 more slides like this where the topic and who was leading it and who sponsored it, as an example. Anything to say on here? I mean, like I said, I've got all the slides that they said, that the speaker said you can share, kind of thing. If someone wants to have any further comments about this. Here's another one, life cycle case study. Keith is a real good friend of mine. I've known him when he was an auditor with DECRA, and love the way he approaches things. He's great, and he gives wonderful presentations, and was the leader at this presentation here. Did a fantastic job. And the de novo pathway, as everyone on this call knows, is receiving lots of attention, especially with innovations that are occurring right now.
I was kind of disappointed with that presentation.
Yeah.
It was
I didn't attend it. I didn't attend this one.
I attended part of it and then left because there were there's other presentations going on at the same time that I thought had more value. It was very straightforward. This is the introduction to a de novo. Maybe the questions were better. It would be nice if we could get copies of the questions afterwards for the sessions we missed, because I think that's where some of the more
insightful
nuance, like the education piece of a experienced consultant talking to an experienced consultant.
I agree with you. Here's another one: digital health software, apps, and wearables, and things like this. This was this was one of my highlights in terms of a lot of noise around this area.
I went to that one.
And then the FDA experience with surveillance under notified bodies perspective, as an example.
Bijan, you just left a comment?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. David was just saying he's got the slides that he said are possible to share. And I just said there was one set of slides that would be interested to look at, the ones from safety and performance specifications. Was it like 3 slides ago?
Yeah. It's one, I've got to be careful about how to answer that question, right? Because, if you had paid, you had access to the slides, and that's why I said, if you send me an email, maybe we can talk about this, kind of thing. So I know this is being recorded, so I got to be kind of discreet a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
Erik Vollebrecht is a regular guest at Moniers, and he always has interesting things to say. How was it at the presentation?
Which one?
Erik Vollebrecht.
The what?
2 slides back. Here, speaker Erik Vollebrecht at the Marketing, Advertising and Claims.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Went
Eric.
to this presentation?
Was that Eric? Is Eric on the phone or not? Is he?
No, he's not. He's saying that he saw Eric Vollebrecht's name.
I went to this presentation, and Eric is always a fantastic speaker. I actually think I went to 2 of his presentations. He has a good way of making you laugh even when you want to cry. That's some of the things that he's saying. It was well done. I think that there wasn't anything new from like a regulatory standpoint to talk about, but it was nice to see the perspective under MDR and IVDR. So he did a good job. This is a presentation that I did enjoy for sure.
Yeah. And what we're seeing. Yeah. Excuse me, Ty. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say what we're seeing is, FDA has always been all in on advertising and promotion. And actually, when they go to these meetings, they actually send, people around without their FDA tag, or, there may be another badge.
Oh, they had it flipped backwards. That's what happened to me.
Yeah. And they'll go around and talk to people to see if they're, what kind of language they're using when they talk about their product and stuff. They do this at a lot of the meetings scientific conferences that we go to, American Heart, stroke, TCT, transcatheter valve meetings, etc. They do this a lot where they kind of have engaged in discussions to try to see how they're doing. They look at the booths and see if anything up there is it's off-label in the sense of what they're doing, or if they're talking about off-label things. But what I guess what I'm trying to say is FDA's been on this for many, many years, but because of the MDR and IVDR, we got some harmonization, that's occurring, at least with emphasis on making sure you have data to support the claims that you're talking about, the benefits or whatever that are out there, and that it's part of your label, as an example. So although it's not as robust as what the agency has right now, but you are seeing, alignment here, getting close. Okay, this is where we were. Yeah, let's go. I think this is getting close to the end here. Selected talks. Yeah, we had a I don't know if guys know Grace or not. She's well known in this area of what's going on in China, as an example, and then also, the presentation on the right side about EU regulations and clinical evaluations. And Richard was on my workshop, and previously you saw Martin doing a talk. He was on my workshop on Sunday also. So
David and Ty, really anyone on the call, if you know some of the people personally that you went to their presentations, invite them to give us a snapshot of it here.
That was one of the things I wanted to benefit. I thought that doing it like this was maybe we can network with your group, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Break the EU and novel devices, EUA and novel devices program. I forget which day this was on. If this was on the Tuesday?
I think it's Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday? Yeah, I was there at this one also, and then we also had UK and Switzerland. I don't know if we got anybody, or do we have anybody from UK here or not?
I saw Karen Deep earlier, but he might have left.
Okay, maybe so. Yeah, we're all interested in the UK and things like that. But so I wanted to make sure this was up there. Of course, it was under medical devices also. This was safety issues when conducting trials, as an example, and the personalized devices.
Speaking of UK, I just put in the chat a comment from Michael Brannigan Harris, who likely will be in attendance in April in San Diego. That MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, confirmed an appointed notified body for the UK.
Okay, cool. I think that gives us 4 now, I believe, in the UK.
I think it's 3. He writes
it's 3.
3.
Okay, yeah. So
DECRA,
here's
and I'm not sure who else.
BSI, DECRA. I think there's I'll name them. There's the other one is I'll think of it here in a minute. It's the one that was located in Paris or in France, and now they're over there. Okay, so this is another talk. I'm looking at the time, the benefit risk analysis. I just in my consulting business, this has always been something of a challenge for companies, as an example, not from the risk perspective, but from the benefits perspective per se. And this is that, we respectfully disagree with the agency. You can see the things here.
If you don't mind, just quickly, Bijan, you mentioned risk. And not everyone here has met you, familiar with you. What is it that you do? It seems like a fitting place to introduce you.
Oh, good. Glad. Yeah.
For me, Bijan?
Yes, please.
Asking me. I am a technical fellow and a corporate advisor for Medtronic on product safety risk management. And aside from that, I also teach risk management in 3 universities, 2 in Europe and 1 at the invitation of the FDA. I teach in Drexel University in Philadelphia. I teach and consult worldwide, outside of Medtronic as well. I don't do contract work. I only advise. That's my first edition book that David was holding.
Yeah, I don't have your second. I don't have the second one, although I reference it in my chapter 6 of my book, by the way.
I'm sorry. It's a little bit of an expensive book, but I don't get to set the price. The publisher does. But the first one was a bestseller, actually, even despite its price. And I've trained about more than 6,000 people now worldwide.
Wow. Just a
Yeah.
casual poll here, just a show of hands. Who would like him to speak on a
Oh,
future
yeah.
Friday? Anyone who?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, there are a couple of hands going up. He just needs a little encouragement, ladies and gentlemen. I'm having a side conversation with him. He's like, I don't know, but just think of how many people you disappoint. I know that's not you.
Oh, no, that's great.
He's
a
thinking
great
about
speaker.
presenting on the 28th of October. So just a little encouragement.
Well, he can definitely do it. He's
Joe, you're a good salesman.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Well, it's what I do for a living, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know shit about risk, but mildly manipulating people and persuading them. Yeah. I can do that.
He'll give a presentation to make it understandable. He's very practical. So,
He was my keynote speaker at the 10X London in 2020, right
Oh, cool.
before COVID.
right. Okay.
Yeah, right before. In fact, I think
Yeah.
I was on an airplane with a COVID sick person sitting next to me on the 2020. I didn't catch it, but it was.
Have you ever?
No, I haven't caught it forever at all. But I remember we didn't know about dry coughs, but there, of the whole airplane, there was one guy who was coughing incessantly. He was sitting right next to me, and I was thinking, I'm gonna get this sick for sure.
Well,
So,
let me see if before we get off the phone, I can find a link to your presentation,
Yeah.
which I since published. Go on ahead.
Yeah. So this is the last couple of presentations had medical devices with it. You can take a look there. And then my last slide is, I know we've gone over a little bit here, but these are, you may look at this as some more information you want on this. And then of course, next year it's going to be in Montreal. And then here, as I said at the beginning, I've never attended Euro RAPS, but I'd like to hear thoughts about how that meeting has gone over in Europe. And also, that's my last slide right there. Yeah. Any thoughts about Euro RAPS?
Has anyone gone? I would wonder how much, I mean, given how much
Yeah.
EU emphasis was in this one, which
Yeah.
I was really surprised. They had one presentation on the QSMR in
Yeah.
the entire RAPS thing. And I know that it's like new, but I would have expected at least
Yeah. Right.
another
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
presentations. And maybe it's because,
Yeah.
you know, we really haven't gotten into the implementation mode about it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I brought that up in my slide here. Let's see.
yeah, and I was giving a neighbor a jump, so I might have missed the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. I thought I had it here because I wanted to bring that out because of the. Yeah, right here, strategy and development for top 3 RAPS, number 1E here. You know, this idea of the transition that's occurring with the agency, and I think Joe's group can help with this. You know, in terms of helping manufacturers make this transition along the way.
Yeah, because I went to that presentation and, you know, they say that they have a couple of definitions that don't exactly align practically.
Yeah.
In my experience, right? Like they say
Yeah.
the medical device
Yeah.
file is the same
Yeah.
as the device master record.
Yeah.
And one thing that's really nice about 820 is that they have 3 delineated types of design records. If I'm like, they have the design history file, the device master file, and then they have,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, the device master record, and then the design history record. So you have a batch record, you have a cookbook, and then you have your story. And ISA doesn't really have that. And when I've been audited on the medical device file, the interpretation gets all over the place, even though it's kind of clear. And like the medical device file needs to have like your intended use statements and some additional things.
Yeah.
So I'd asked in that panel,
Yeah.
you know, what's FDA's position? Because they said that this is the same, but like practically it's not the same. It's not interpreted the same every time because I have auditors that don't know how to delineate a design history file from a medical device file. And this, you know, very wonderful lady comes up and is like explaining me the definitions. And I'm like, that's correct. I do understand that. Like, but like, that's not my practical experience.
Yeah.
And then she turns and flips her badge around and it's FDA, flips it back really quick.
Yeah.
And then she was like, no, I would love to hear more about it. And Michelle and I were talking to her and it kind of like left a little bit not on the same page. And then she sat with us at a software session and we were like, I'm sorry, we just have to finish explaining what we were thinking.
Right.
She actually was like, oh, I'm really glad you told me that because we need to correct that.
Yeah.
You know, if it's truly not a 1-to-1 translation, we can't be saying that it is. We need to put around it. So I thought it was useful from that perspective. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I do too. Thanks for sharing that. That's good.
But I was surprised there wasn't more on the QSMR because that's gonna hit all of us and be pretty serious.
Yeah, I agree with
Well,
you. Yeah.
Talking about QMS, a little commercial for next week. Two things. One, importantly, it's my birthday. Chocolates are appreciated. And second, as a special birthday gift, Nellie has agreed to present. And I've talked, we came up collectively with the idea of potentially writing a book as a group called So You Want to Make a Medical Device, Everything You Need to Know to Get Started. And Nellie and I were talking yesterday, and most of you on the call know, but I'm a little slow, that in creating a QMS system, some people start with paper, then they can go virtual, then they can go electronic. And I found that intriguing. Like, when do you make what choice? Who's right for what? What are the big differences? Maybe some disaster stories of people who started off with paper and tape and binder clips and what ends up happening. So I think that'd be a really interesting conversation. And then the following week, we have Dwayne's colleague, Giovanni, going to talk about medtech startups, raising capital and building teams. And then with enough peer pressure, Bijan will present on October 28th.
Our next speaker is not profane. In fact,
Oh,
I'm
what?
very grateful.
Okay, somebody's playing. Yeah, I think Bijan just hit his link. That's the way I started his introduction, because I think I had first to do with you beforehand.
Yeah, that was a good session in London. I liked it.
It was. So unless there's anything else for the good of the order.
Yeah.
David, thank you. Ty,
Hey, you're
thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.